Chapter 7 Testing Destiny Lunar date 3.1625.3.3 5 hours and 1 minute after night rise. Abigail's mind was racing. She had anticipated her parents finding out about Dorn and her breaking up. She anticipated them being upset. She anticipated them trying to persuade her to get back with him. She hadn't anticipated that she was willing to give Dorn another chance. Sitting in Shyloe's Cosmospeeder, the two of them sped through the maze of buildings of downtown Artanikst. Wishing to have full control, Shyloe opted to pilot her speeder instead of relying on her personal candy. Even though both of them had class first thing in the morning, they needed to escape the confines of their dorm room. Well, I needed to. I don't know about Shyloe. To say the last few days were stressful would be an understatement of the century. Abigail recalled the conversation with her parents when they interrupted her time with Daniel. "Darling," her father had spoken softly, "sometimes you have to put aside what you want for the better future of the family. By marrying Dorn, you will ensure that our family's prestige will be among the elite of Palmara. We are all depending on you." "Maybe I don't want that for myself," she replied sharply, surprising even herself. "Maybe I want something different." Her father's tone grew more serious. "Your mother and I have placed a lot of hope in you. Don't disappoint us. I know it may not seem like it now, but this is what is best for your future. You will thank us one day." Before she could respond, her mother had added her own opinion. "You have a week to fix this problem. I'm sure if you act now, Dorn will take you back. If you don't, you will not only ruin your future, you will ruin the future of our entire family." Abigail had felt like crying. She wanted to be like Tallon, like someone who was strong enough to choose the path in life she desired. The weight of her parents' expectations were overbearing, and she couldn't let them down. She couldn't fail them. She didn't have the luxury of pursuing the life she wanted for herself. She needed to think of her family. "I will call Dorn later and let you know." Both parents had smiled brightly, as if a switch had been flipped. "There's our girl," her dad said. "We look forward to hearing from you. We love you." "Love you too," she lied and hung up. And then she did cry. 3 days later, she was still wrestling with her decision. She had yet to call Dorn. Despite talking about it in length with Shyloe, Abigail still wasn't fully committed to one decision or the other. After Abigail took out her frustration on her pillows for the third time that day, Shyloe suggested they go for a drive, get some food, and maybe pay a visit to Sumiko Lake. Even though it was late at night, the two of them hadn't eaten since lunch. The two ladies were famished and wanted to indulge in midnight meals to take with them to the lake. Shyloe's Cosmospeeder descended slowly to one of the small rectangular buildings below. Blades was the most famous global chain of restaurants in Palmara, named after the nickname given to Wilbur Artanikst for his use of the written word to strike against the Empire. Blades featured some of the best tacos, sandwiches, and pastas in all of Artanikst. "I think I'm going to grab a chicken sandwich and one hard-shell taco with sour cream," Shyloe parked the speeder, "plus an extra large coffee with 3 cream and 2 sugar. I have a feeling we're going to be out the lake for a while." "I'm grabbing 2 coffees myself with 2 soft-shell tacos." "No sandwich?" Abigail shrugged. "A taco is basically a sandwich, isn't it? You have your bread, you have your ingredients, you fold it together and eat it as one whole thing." She imitated shoving a taco into her mouth. "A sandwich." "I think you're on to something," Shyloe pondered while tapping the side of her head with her finger. "I never looked at it quite like that before, but it makes perfect sense." Abigail saw the glint in her friend's eyes. "No, Shy, don't you dare." "What?" she replied with fake innocence. "Don't go in there and try to persuade them that tacos are sandwiches. Someone has to do it, Abs. If it isn't me, someone else will, and then we won't get the credit. Who knows, maybe we'll get free tacos for life." Abigail shook her head with a smile. "We already do get them for free, or did you forget what age we're living in?" "Oh, right," Shyloe laughed. "I've been spending a bunch of time on the solar deck lately for one of my class projects. I was studying the creatures of myth, and I had to pay some poor slob to take me to one of the Gugway's caves. He said I was insane. Anyways, forget that brain lapse. Let's just get some food." "Gugway?" Abigail was curious now. "What'd you find out?" "Quite a bit, actually," Shyloe admitted. "I'll tell you once we get our food." "Fair," Abigail agreed. They ordered their food from one of the hosts. The career was not one of major prestige, but Abigale and Shyloe appreciated them all the same. It was true that with all their advanced technology, they didn't need to have people taking orders at the restaurants. In fact, with everyone having access to their own fabricator, one didn't even have to leave their house for, well, anything. This quickly became noticeable as cosmology became more prevalent. To ensure people still interacted with other humans, the rulers of the 4 continents backed the creation of restaurants across every nation. Every visit to a restaurant where one ordered food resulted in an increase of 10 prestige points. If people dined in, then they'd receive a special bonus of 20 points on top of the 10 they already earned. It was a simple system that the people took advantage of quickly. The people of Palmara would do anything to increase their prestige. The 2 ladies returned to the Cosmospeeder with their food in specialized containers with a large blue capital B engraved on the outside. Still want to hear about the Gugway? Absolutely. Listening to Shyloe talk about something she cared about was a better option than dealing with the emotions raging inside of her. Being out with her friend was a much-needed reprieve. Candy? Yes, Shyloe, dear. A soft male voice came from the Cosmospeeder. What can I help you with? Take control for a bit, please. Course set for Sumiko Lake. As you wish, Shyloe. Thank you, Candy. Shyloe turned toward Abigale. Are you sure you want to hear about the Gugway? They're not for the faint of heart. Yes. Besides, I've discovered in some of my research that Tallon actually worked with 3 of these creatures to try and capture Wilbur Artanikst. A veil of sadness overtook Shyloe. You already knew that? I was hoping to help you with that. I found that out during my last session, and I knew you'd be dying to learn more. Abigale's eyes grew large with compassion. Really? Oh, please still tell me, Shy. All I heard was that she did. I don't know anything besides that. This will be perfect for our research. Daniel will... Her voice caught in her throat. Daniel. He still doesn't know why my parents called the other night. I told him they wanted to check in on me, which was true, but I didn't say why. Daniel and her had learned tons of information for their project from the 3 solar deck programs. In fact, they were supposed to get together during the week in order to start organizing their presentation. I'm not sure if he would still want to speak to me if I decide to go back to Dorn. I know he won't really understand. His parents don't put the same pressure on him. Noticing Abigale's distraction, Shyloe shuffled closer to her. Forget the Gugway. We can talk about them some other time. Talk to me, Abigale. I know we've talked to death about the breakup and your parents over the past little bit. Let's chat and eat, and maybe this amazing food will give us some massive revelation we didn't realize before. Abigale smiled and took a sip of her coffee. This does taste amazing. Shyloe rejoiced with elation after drinking some of her own. So good! All right, Abs, from the top. Let's go through it all one more time with a fine-tooth comb. I know we will get your answer. Well, as you know, my parents believe I'm the only hope they have for our family becoming one of great prestige. My brothers don't wish to get married, despite my parents' constant nagging. Honestly, I think it drove them away from the idea, she snickered. And I don't blame them. I wish I had the resolve, but I want to please my parents. I don't want to let them down. Have you ever told them about Daniel? No. What's the point? She held up her arms in defeat. They will see his prestige number and immediately shut him down. Maybe you should mention him and see what they say, Shyloe suggested after taking a bite of her sandwich. Abigale eyed Shyloe. I wish I had your resolve. Last year, Shyloe informed her parents she was never going to marry. They tried to pressure her into reconsidering her decision. Not wanting to deal with all the drama, Shyloe left home and refused any contact with her parents until they agreed to accept her decision. I know my parents love me, in their own way. They do want what's best for me, even if it is on their terms. I saw my brothers disappoint my parents, and I never wanted to be that person to them. I longed for their love and acceptance in my life. I still do, it just doesn't seem like my opinion matters. She slammed her fist down on the speeder's dash, nearly sending her food flying from her lap. Fazik! You should have seen their faces when they called. They didn't ask how I was feeling. They didn't ask why we broke up. They didn't even ask if I wanted to go back with Dorn. They assumed that I'd want to because of his prestige and how all of this was just a big misunderstanding. They believe this is just the way things are meant to be. You marry someone because of the advantage they will give you in this life. What is the point of the advantage if you're miserable? My parents don't love each other. I don't believe they ever have. She took a deep breath. Maybe I wouldn't be this upset if I hadn't gone to visit Daniel's family. Well, Back when I still talked to my parents, it was obvious they didn't love each other either. I'm sure they both have had numerous affairs. Doesn't seem to affect them though, almost like it's all part of what it means to be married. After taking a bite of her taco, Abigail acknowledged her friend with a solemn nod. At one point, I tried to figure out if I was actually my father's daughter. That is not a discussion I want to relive. Don't blame you. All this is probably why some of us, like your brothers and me, are bucking against this tradition. Abigail groaned. I wish you could have come with me to Truffaut. I've never seen such love in a marriage. And not just one couple, but all three. It was unreal. Almost as if I was living in a dream of another time and place. Not gonna lie, Abs. A part of me did think you may have been exaggerating. A part of me wishes I was, Abigail sighed. Then I wouldn't be wrestling with this whole thing. Shyloe, dear, Candy's voice intruded, we have arrived at Sumiko Lake. Every time Abigail came to Sumiko Lake, the beauty of the area took her breath away. The calm ripples of the lake's water reflected the bluish-gray hue of Palmara's two moons, Artemis and Luni. Both were still nearly full as they had recently begun their monthly journey around the world once again. The light of the moons highlighted the surrounding Corkin mountains and forests with a minor glow around their outlines. It was ominous, yet beautiful. Even some of the sparkling stars were visible in the waves of the water due to the lack of light pollution up in the mountain. They grabbed what remained of their food and walked down the gravel path to the small wooden deck jutting out into the water. No one knows who built it. Apparently it had been around for hundreds of years and repaired from time to time. This was Abigail's favorite place in the entire world. Life back at the academy was a rush and technology was everywhere. She was happy there were still some places in the world that weren't touched by cosmology. Maybe I can bring... She stopped herself before she finished the thought. A few loons were nearby serenading the two ladies with their songs. Despite the air being slightly cool from the mountain breeze, Abigail took off her socks and sneakers and placed her legs in the tranquil water. It might be warm. The coolness sent a chill up her spine as she pulled her feet out of the water and decided to sit cross-legged, tucking her feet behind her knees to warm them up. She pulled her hoodie down over her kneecaps to hasten the heat. Noticing Shyloe taking off her shoes, Abigail warned her friend about the water's cool temperature. Shyloe paid her no heed and slipped her feet into the water. Your body temperature must be off, Abs. The water is surprisingly warm. Tentatively, Abigail lowered her feet back into the water. It was warmer than it had been a few seconds earlier. Huh. Must have just been a cold patch of water. She swallowed the last bite of her first taco. I'd love to be married up here, except Dorn will want a spectacle. Does that mean you're choosing him? Do I really have a choice? Abigail breathed out defeated. It's your life, girl. Shyloe chomped down on her chicken sandwich. Have you even settled down enough to compare and contrast Dorn and Daniel? What do you mean? Well, have you considered the positives and the negatives of a relationship with each other? Not just flippantly, but actually wrote a list down or talked about it, and looked beyond the prestige factor. I guess not to the extent you're talking about. Well, there's no better time than the present. Shyloe held out her hands to the realm of nature surrounding them. And I have all night, so start talking. Taking a large gulp of coffee, Abigail started to process her thoughts before she started. Probably easiest to state the obvious. Dorn gives me a level of prestige I've never been able to obtain with Daniel. Despite the times when he is in complete coda, which isn't very often, I might add, Shyloe interrupted. Sorry, had to say that. Also, I said to look beyond the prestige. I don't count this. I was going to say, Dorn can be quite funny and intelligent. We've had some good times together, like when he took me on a trip to one of the space stations last year. I never thought I'd be able to go to space. It was a great experience. We even went to the zoo up there. It was spectacular. Uh-huh. Shyloe had heard all this before. How does he make you feel? The loons kept singing their songs in the distance. Abigail peered down into the water and created small waves by shuffling her feet. She imagined seeing Dorn in her mind, and all she felt was indifference. When things are good, I feel like I'm the only woman in the world. The issue is that it happens too rarely. We fight a lot, mainly about what he wants me to do, and I don't want to do it. He thinks prestige is all that matters. Meanwhile, I want people to be proud of my achievements in archaeology because I actually accomplished something. Not simply based on a large prestige number because of whom I decided to marry. At the same time, this is how our world works. Prestige makes Palmara go round. If I want to be a successful archaeologist, then the prestige gives me an easier path. You're back to the prestige again, Abs. Forget that. How does Dorn make you feel? Like in the pit of your stomach or your heart, when you kiss, when you touch, when you do anything else? Shyloe asked, trying to push for a more in-depth answer. We haven't done anything else, Shyloe. You know that. Trust me, it isn't from his lack of trying. I'm just not committed to that type of relationship with him until I know for sure that I'll stay with him. I feel like if I did become intimate with him, he'd use it as a reason to make me stay with him. Not because he has any sense of feelings for me. Besides, I'd just be another one of his trophies he could brag about. He'd use it as a way to control me. She raised her head and met Shyloe's gaze with resolve, her feet still shuffling in the water. I am worth more than that. Otherwise, honestly, I don't feel joy when I'm with him. He doesn't awaken any of those desires inside of me. Sure, there are moments of excitement and happiness, but they're fleeting. When we kiss, I always feel like he's comparing me to others he's kissed before. All right, what about Daniel? Daniel and I haven't kissed, Shyloe. I know. In general, how does he make you feel? Abigail returned her eyes to the water below, still shuffling. She imagined Daniel in her mind. Her heart started to beat faster, her stomach twisted in nervous knots. I feel like a real person, like I exist. He listens to me speak and cares about my opinions. He values me for, well, me. He is kind and nice. He's also very principled. I can't think of many people like that today. It's definitely because he's a follower of Arnion. It's inspiring, really. Okay, here's a scenario for you, Shyloe started. Say Dorn and you get married. How would you feel if he was sleeping around? Before she could stop herself, Abigail shrugged. I expect it to happen. And if I'm being real, I probably will too. We already talked about how marriage isn't about exclusivity anymore. It's all about the prestige it brings. All right. What if Daniel did the same thing? A wave of devastation overcame Abigail. I'd be heartbroken. Why? She didn't know. At least not at first. I think it's because it would be more personal. With Daniel, I don't expect it. I expect him to stay loyal for life because of his beliefs. Could you adopt his beliefs? That made Abigail sit up straight as a board. Her feet stopped dead in the water. What? Could you become a follower of Arnion? I'm not sure, she hesitated. Is that important? I'd imagine it would be to Daniel. His whole life is built upon the foundation of him following Arnion. It may be too hard to marry someone who doesn't share those beliefs. Abigail stayed silent. She hadn't thought about that aspect before. Maybe it didn't matter how she felt around Daniel. He'd never choose her if she didn't follow Arnion. And she wasn't sure if she'd be able to follow Arnion with integrity. She wasn't even sure Arnion actually existed, even though many in the past seemed to believe in the creator. Most modern people attributed that belief to a primal way to explain the world and universe in terms they didn't quite understand. Except, the reason why we're even living in the age of progress is because Wilbur believed in Arnion, and even ascribed his success of overthrowing the Dracon Empire to Arnion. Is Arnion real? How do I even find out? She tried to recall the conversations with Daniel. All of them were melding together in her brain to the point where it wasn't making any sense. I don't feel any closer to a decision, Abigail spit out. Dorn gives me prestige, and he is who my parents want me to marry. I'm attracted to Daniel, and I want to be with him, but I'm not a follower of Arnion, and he is. Maybe I should choose neither. That is also an option, Shyloe allowed, finishing up her sandwich and picking up her coffee. I still believe you could become one of the greatest archaeologists on your own. Then you'd have suitors lined up for kilometers. I'm grateful for your optimism, but that won't dissuade my parents, Abigail pointed out. Shyloe set down her coffee. It all comes back to your parents, Abs. If your parents love Daniel, you choose him. If you love Dorn, you choose him. You're also set on pleasing your parents. You could compare and contrast Dorn and Daniel all you want, but in the end, you know what you're going to do. You're going to make the choice that pleases your parents. Shyloe placed a hand on her shoulder. I get it. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm only pointing out what you already know. You want your parents' approval. We all do. It's only natural for a child to crave it. Everything Shyloe said was accurate. She did want to please her parents. However, there was one person who could make her forget all about that. If she knew how Daniel really felt about her, maybe she could live with herself for not following her parents' dream. Maybe I can even learn to truly follow Arnion. She started to finger a command into her nexus. "What are you doing?" Shyloe inquired. "Testing destiny." She didn't know why she said it. It sounded cool in her head, as if her life had some kind of significance in the grand scheme of things. Finding Daniel's contact info, she initiated a call. She knew it was late. She hoped he was awake. A few minutes later, Daniel's three-dimensional holographic form appeared above her nexus. Due to the lack of light, his cream-colored skin appeared lighter than normal. Her heart was beating fast. The knots came back to her stomach. "Hey, Abigail. What's up?" "Hey, Daniel. I'm sorry if I woke you or interrupted something." She tried to sound normal. "I wasn't doing much, actually. Emmy and Seth are out on a date. I was working on some homework. I don't mind the interruption. My brain could use a break." He smiled. She didn't know how to word it, so she blurted it out without putting too much thought into it. "I want to apologize because I wasn't entirely honest with you the other night as for the reason that my parents called. They are upset that I broke up with Dorn. They want me to get back with him. My parents aren't like your parents. They care about prestige and see Dorn as a way for our family to be among the elite. I'm a Roja. It sounds stupid when I say it out loud." Her voice trailed off, almost regretting calling Daniel in the first place. Daniel waved his hand. "It doesn't sound stupid. I understand. Don't worry. Prestige is very important to life in Palmara." "Yeah. Anyways, you and I have grown close over the past couple months, and I've come to respect your input in my life. Shyloe has given me her opinion. I'm curious what you think. Should I listen to my parents and go back with Dorn, or forge my own path?" His face didn't betray what he was thinking. "Well, what do you want?" She sighed. That's a complicated question." "I imagine it is," he smirked. Her heart leapt into her chest. "I'm sure your parents only want what's best for you. And being with Dorn will give you opportunities you may never have. I want what is best for you too." She wasn't sure she believed what she was hearing. "And you think being with Dorn is what's best for me?" His eyes shifted. There it was. He isn't sure. He's hiding something, or is my mind simply playing a trick on me? "Prestige is very important to life in Palmara," he repeated. "Dorn will give you a better life, Abigail. Your parents are your parents. I know you care about what they think, and I know you don't want to let them down. I think this may be what's best for you. You have so much potential. I believe you have it in you to change the archaeological world." He paused and took a deep breath. "The prestige you earn from being with Dorn will help you with that." A part of her was hoping Daniel would admit his undying love for her. If he had, she'd have left her parents, Dorn, and all the prestige behind her. Maybe she misread the situation. Maybe Daniel didn't love her after all. However, she couldn't be upset with him. She was the one who asked him. "Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate your help," she managed to say. "I'm always here if you need to talk, Abigail." "I gotta run. We still good to meet up and work on the project next week?" "Of course. You won't get rid of me that easily." Another smile. This one was different, like he was masking his true feelings. "Good," she responded with the same smile. "Have a good night." "You too." She ended the call and Shyloe was staring at her with sympathy. "That probably wasn't the answer you were hoping for." "No," Abigail admitted, "but I think it was the one I needed to hear. I will go see Dorn tomorrow." Finishing up her first cup of coffee, Abigail beheld the beauty of the world around her. A part of her was sad. Another part of her was determined to become the best archaeologist in the world. If I can do that, maybe being married to Dorn won't be so bad. As the loons continued to sing, a part of her still wondered what life might be like if she married Daniel. Thank you for listening to my book, Palmara, A Dying Breed. I'd love to hear your feedback. What do you like? What do you think needs some work? What are you most interested to see happen? What questions do you have? At the end of every chapter, I'll have these slides that show how time works in Palmara, plus the different sayings and terms to help you engage with the world. As well, the characters who appear in each chapter will be found in the video description. Be sure to check it out. And if you're enjoying this and enjoy other stories, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You can always join the Discord with the link in the description as well. Until next time, Hinei Akmatov, which means how pleasant it is for humanity to dwell in harmony with one another. Take care.